I never thought I'd be the guy writing something like this, but here I am, spilling my guts because I don't know where else to turn. My wife Lisa and I had been married for about 5 years. We weren't perfect, but I genuinely thought we had something real until recently. Things had been off for a while, but I couldn't quite put my finger on why. She'd become bitchy, snapping at me over tiny things, and she started working late more often. I figured maybe stress at her job, or maybe she was just tired. We fought a little, but nothing too serious. Still, I felt this nagging doubt creeping in like a splinter under my skin. Then came the signs I didn't want to see. She started hiding her phone more, locking it when I was around, and her attitude towards me got colder. I'd catch her lying about where she was or who she was with. The worst part was she'd lie straight to my face, no hesitation, like I was some idiot who wouldn't notice. She told me she was working late, meeting friends or running errands, but I'd find her phone records and she'd be chatting with someone late into the night. I remember one night I casually looked over her shoulder to see her texting, "Can't wait to see you tonight," to a number I didn't recognize. It hit me like a punch. Her texts were flirty, intimate, not the kind of stuff you send to a friend. That wasn't the only thing. Her schedule was suddenly packed and she was too busy for sex or even just cuddling. She'd come home and be cold, dismissive. I'd ask her what was wrong and she'd brush me off, call me paranoid or insecure. But I knew her habits and this was different. The way she avoided eye contact, the way she flinched whenever I touched her, it all pointed to one thing. She was hiding something and I was pretty sure I knew what it was. One afternoon, I decided to do my own digging. I got her phone when she was in the shower and I started scrolling through her messages. What I saw made my stomach drop. There were dozens of texts between her and some lawyer named Mark, who was handling her disability claim. I knew she'd been applying for some kind of benefits, but I didn't realize she'd been chatting with him like that. It wasn't just about paperwork. They were talking like they'd been seeing each other, exchanging flirty messages, and even making plans to meet up. The messages weren't explicit, but the tone was clear enough. He was flirting back, promising to help her through this difficult time, and she was responding with all kinds of suggestive remarks. My heart pounded. I felt sick. My wife was cheating on me with the lawyer handling her disability claim. That's when I knew things had spiraled way out of control. I didn't sleep that night. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak, like the ground had shifted beneath me. All those years, all the trust I'd put in her. And for what? To find out she'd been lying to my face, sneaking around and sleeping with some lawyer. The betrayal was worse because I'd always thought of her as strong, independent, even bitchy sometimes, but never unfaithful. Now I felt stupid for ever trusting her at all. I had to figure out what to do next, but honestly I was just numb. It was like some bad movie I couldn't wake up from. All I kept thinking was, how could she lie to me like this? How could she cheat with the one person I trusted to help her? And then the anger started to build. I wasn't just hurt anymore, I was furious. I wanted to make her pay, make her understand that I knew what she'd done and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I decided I had to confront her, but I needed a plan. I needed to see just how deep this went, how far her lies reached. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy weight in my chest. My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together. I couldn't believe how stupid I'd been, ignoring the signs, giving her the benefit of the doubt. Now it was clear I had been played. I was married to someone I didn't even recognize anymore. It wasn't just the cheating. I could forgive that if she was honest, but the lying, the sneaking around, and the betrayal of trust, that cut deeper. It made me question everything about our relationship, about who she was, and whether I even knew her at all. I knew what I had to do, though. I had to face her, and I had to do it soon. I just didn't know how I was going to handle it when the time came. That afternoon, I sat her down in the living room, my heart pounding like a drum, knowing that I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal anymore. The house was quiet, the only sound coming from the ticking clock on the wall. She was sitting on the couch, drinking her coffee, acting innocent, like she hadn't just been caught red-handed. I looked at her and took a deep breath because I knew this was going to be the fight that changed everything. "You've been lying to me," I started, trying to keep my voice steady, even though inside I was boiling. She looked up at me, arching an eyebrow, and immediately tried to brush it off. "What are you talking about? I've been honest with you." That was her typical deflection, that bitchy, fake smile she always put on when she thought she could talk her way out of anything. I wasn't buying it. I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages I found, her texts with Mark, the lawyer. The ones where she was clearly flirting, promising to meet up and talking about her feelings. Her face slightly paled, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, it's nothing, just some stupid joking around. You're overreacting," she snapped, voice sharp and dismissive. I could see the lie crumbling, but she still clung to her bullshit. "Joking around? You're kidding, right? You're cheating on me with your lawyer, Lisa. That's not just joking around." I could feel the anger bubbling up, and honestly, I wanted to shake her, scream at her for being such a bitch about everything. She rolled her eyes and crossed her arms. "You're crazy. You don't understand how stressful all this is for me. You're just accusing me of stuff I didn't do." She lied so easily, like it was second nature. I could see that smug, bitchy look she gets when she thinks she's winning the argument, but I wasn't about to let her gaslight me. I told her I knew about the affair, about how she and Mark had been sneaking around, about how I knew she'd been lying for months. That's when her tone shifted. She started with the typical denial, saying I was possessive, paranoid, or just plain jealous, but I could see through her act now. She was angry, defensive, trying to turn it around on me. "You're just jealous because he's actually helping me. Maybe if you weren't so useless, I wouldn't need to cheat to get some damn support." She spat the words at me, her eyes blazing with contempt. That was a real punch in the gut, her calling me useless like I was nothing but a burden. I felt my fists clench. That's when I realized this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about how she saw me, how she treated me. She was so bitchy, so dismissive, like I was supposed to just accept her betrayal because she was so stressed. I was furious, but I also felt broken, like everything I believed in our marriage had just shattered into pieces. I wanted to scream, to yell, to make her understand how much she'd hurt me. But I also knew that this confrontation was only the beginning. I had to think carefully about what my next move was. I didn't want her to see me as weak, but I also didn't want to lose my temper and say something I'd regret. As much as I hated her at that moment, I also felt this strange sense of clarity. I realized she'd been lying so much, so effortlessly, that she'd probably been doing it for a long time. This wasn't a one-time mistake, it was a pattern, and I was sick of being the fool in her game. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew everything, that I was done pretending. Her reaction was immediate. She scoffed, rolled her eyes again, and told me I was overreacting, that I was jealous, that I was crazy. But deep down, I knew she was terrified. She knew I wasn't going to let her keep lying. That's when I saw it, the flicker of fear behind her bitchy facade. I didn't say more right then. I just told her I'd be thinking about all this, about what I wanted to do. I left her sitting there, fuming, her face a mask of anger and defiance. Inside, I was a mess. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. But I also knew I needed a plan. I couldn't just blow up and scream at her. I had to think about how to handle this, how to make her understand that I wasn't going to be her pawn, her fool. She thought she could lie her way out of this, but I was done being played. That's when I started mapping out my next move, knowing that the fallout from this was only just beginning. The days that followed were a blur of anger, confusion, and a strange sense of clarity. I kept replaying everything she said, everything she did, trying to piece together just how deep her lies went. But at the same time, I knew I needed concrete evidence if I was going to do anything about it. I couldn't just confront her again based on suspicion. I had to be thorough. So I started digging even deeper, going through her emails, her social media, setting up a few discreet searches on her phone. I knew I was playing with fire, but I couldn't stand the thought of her sneaking around behind my back any longer. One evening, I found something that made my stomach turn again. I stumbled upon several emails from Mark, the lawyer, that weren't just flirtatious. They were downright explicit. They detailed plans for meetings, coded language about spending time together, and a lot of "I want to see you" stuff that didn't sound like business. It was clear they were having some kind of affair, and it wasn't just about her disability claim. This was something more, something way messier. My mind raced, trying to process the betrayal, how she'd lied to me for months, how she'd been sleeping with the guy who was supposed to be helping her get through her issues. I remember feeling this strange mixture of numbness and rage. I thought about confronting her again, but I knew I needed to be smarter this time. If I was going to expose her, I had to do it right. I started recording her phone calls when I knew she was talking to Mark. I even set up a hidden camera in the living room, not to catch her in the act but to catch her in her lies. Every day, I felt more like a detective in my own marriage, trying to gather enough proof to make her see what she was doing. It was exhausting, but I couldn't stop now. One night, she came home late again, smelling of perfume I didn't recognize. She was acting especially bitchy, snapping at me for asking where she'd been. I watched her carefully, pretending to be indifferent, but inside I was boiling with anger. When she finally went to bed, I sat there in the dark, reading the messages I'd downloaded from her phone, reading the emails I'd found. It hit me hard that this wasn't just some fling or mistake. It was a full-blown betrayal. My wife had been playing me for months, lying every step of the way. That's when I decided I couldn't stay silent anymore. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with everything laid out on the table. I set my plan in motion, knowing that her reaction was going to be a mix of rage, denial, and maybe even tears. It didn't matter. I was done being the fool. I had enough evidence to blow her world apart, and I was going to do it on my terms. I decided I'd wait until she was least expecting it, then hit her with everything I found, face to face. The night I finally decided to confront her, I was nervous but resolute. I sat her down again, this time with more evidence on hand, screenshots of her texts, copies of her emails, recordings of her calls. Her face twisted in anger when she saw I had all of it. She tried her usual tricks, crying crocodile tears, saying I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of stuff she never did. But I didn't buy it. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew exactly what she'd been doing, who she'd been with, and how she'd been lying to me from the start. Her reaction was a mixture of denial and fury. She called me crazy, said I was stalking her, that I was just jealous because she'd been helping herself to a better life. She spat out that I was a controlling bastard, that she didn't owe me any explanations. I remember feeling the rage boiling over, but I kept my cool. I told her I was done. Done with her lies, done with her cheating, done with her dismissive attitude. I told her I knew she was a bitch, but I didn't care anymore. I was fed up with her manipulations and her bullshit. That night was a turning point. I knew my marriage wasn't salvageable if she kept lying and cheating, but I also knew I had to decide what I wanted next. Was I going to throw her out? Was I going to give her an ultimatum? Or was I going to play her game and see how long she'd keep pretending to be innocent? Honestly, I was exhausted and the emotional toll was massive. But I also felt a strange sense of liberation, like I finally had control again. The betrayal was raw, but I refused to let her destroy me completely. Now I was just waiting for her next move because I knew this wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. After that confrontation, everything changed. She was furious, obviously, yelling and crying, calling me all kinds of names, crazy, paranoid, obsessive. But I didn't care. I had everything I needed and I was done playing her game. I told her she could stay if she wanted, but I wasn't going to pretend I didn't know what she'd been doing. I made it clear that her betrayal was the end of the line for me. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger, relief that I finally saw the truth, anger that she'd lied so much for so long. She didn't pack her bags right away, but I could see her simmering with rage and defiance. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was misunderstanding everything, that she'd never cheated on me. That Mark was just a friend, and I was twisting everything out of proportion. I knew better. I had proof, screenshots, recordings, her own words. But her deny attitude pushed me further away. I started to realize that she was not just a liar but a manipulator who would try to gaslight me into doubting what I knew was true. Over the next few days, she kept up the act, pretending everything was normal. She'd come home and act like nothing had changed, but I could see that she was on edge. I decided I had to be the one to make the next move because I wasn't going to let her control the situation anymore. I was tired of playing the fool, tired of feeling like I was walking on eggshells. So I started planning my exit. There were practical things to consider: what to take, where I'd go, how to change the locks. But more than that, I knew I had to prepare myself emotionally. I wasn't just ending a marriage, I was ending a lie I'd believed in for so long. One night she was again bitchy, snapping at me over the smallest things. I didn't bother to argue. Instead, I told her I was leaving, that I couldn't stay in a house with a liar and a cheat. I told her I'd be staying at a friend's place for a few days, giving her the chance to get her act together, or more likely, to pack her bags herself. She told me I was overreacting, that I was throwing away something good. That's when I finally looked her in the eyes and said, "You lied to me every day. You cheated on me with Mark, and I'm not coming back until you're honest and you own up to what you did." I felt a strange weight lift when I said it. I finally stood up for myself. The next few days were tense, to say the least. She kept trying to manipulate me, begging me to stay, accusing me of ruining everything. But I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. Not after all her lies, her betrayal, her bitchy attitude. I started reaching out to a few friends, looking for legal advice, planning the next steps. Honestly, I felt like a shell of myself, but at the same time, I felt stronger than I had in years. I had uncovered the truth, and I was finally taking control. That's when I realized that this was the beginning of the end for us, and maybe for her as well. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I wasn't going to stay in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. It's crazy how fast everything can unravel when you finally face the truth. One day, she was the bitchy wife, throwing her tantrums, denying everything. The next, she was a woman scorned, desperate to keep what was slipping away. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, selfish woman who had lied and cheated her way through our marriage. And I was done being the fool. I told myself I'd get through this, that I'd rebuild my life, and that I'd never again let someone walk all over me the way she did. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much it hurts now, I know I deserve better. We all do. The days after I moved out felt like walking through a fog. I stayed with a friend, someone I trusted, someone who didn't judge me for what I was going through. I needed space to breathe, to think, and to get my head straight. Honestly, I still couldn't believe she'd actually do all that, sleep with her lawyer, lie so blatantly, dismiss everything I had uncovered. It felt like a punch to the chest every morning when I woke up. I kept replaying her sneaky, bitchy attitude, her dismissiveness, and her constant lies. It was like she had built a perfect wall of bullshit around her and I just smashed through it. The hardest part wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the feeling of being completely blindsided. I'd trusted her. I'd loved her. I thought we had a future. And now I was realizing I didn't even know the woman I married. She was manipulative, selfish, and so damn good at hiding her true nature. I kept telling myself I should feel angry, and I did, but beneath that was this strange sadness. I mourned the marriage I thought we had, the future I envisioned, and the trust I'd foolishly placed in her. It was a bitter pill to swallow. But the biggest realization was how much she'd lied, not just about her affair, but about everything. Her feelings, her intentions, even her personality. She'd been bitchy, yes, but that was just a mask for the real person underneath. Someone selfish, manipulative, and willing to lie her way out of everything. I started to wonder how long she'd been lying, how deep this deception ran. This wasn't a momentary mistake. It was a pattern, one I'd been blind to for so long. I knew I had to get some closure. I needed to face her one last time, not to beg her to stay or to argue, but to make her see that I was serious. That I was walking away, not just physically, but emotionally. I arranged a meeting, something informal, just to talk, to lay everything out. I wanted her to know I wasn't coming back, that I'd seen through her bullshit, and that I was done being manipulated. When she showed up that afternoon, her eyes were cold and defiant. She looked like she was ready for a fight, like she still thought she could somehow convince me to stay. I just looked at her, calm but firm. I told her I knew about everything, her affair with Mark, her lying, her manipulation. I told her I didn't want her excuses, her crying, or her bitchy attitude anymore. I told her I was done, finished with her games. I said I deserved better and I was going to find it. I told her she'd lost me, not just as a husband, but as someone who cared. Her reaction was classic. She called me names, told me I was overreacting, said I was crazy for leaving her over some stupid affair. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I'd ruin her life if I went through with this. But I didn't waver. I looked at her and finally saw her for what she was, a woman who'd lied, cheated, and bitchily manipulated her way through our marriage. I told her she was selfish, and she'd better start owning her mistakes before it was too late. I left that meeting knowing I'd done everything I could, that I'd said what needed to be said. Honestly, the emotional toll was devastating, but I also felt a strange sense of liberation. I was finally free from her control, from her lies, from the constant bitchy attitude that had worn me down for so long. I realized I'd been living in her shadow, trying to hold everything together while she was out sneaking around with her lawyer. Now I was starting to rebuild my life, slowly, painfully, but surely. The betrayal was a dagger, yes, but it also forced me to wake up. I'd learned the hard way that trust isn't something to take for granted, and that sometimes the biggest lessons come from the deepest heartbreak. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know one thing for certain. I won't let anyone lie to me or manipulate me again. Not ever. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing, mentally, emotionally, and practically. The house was quiet without her bitchy comments and manipulative smirks. I started seeing a therapist, not because I thought I was crazy, but because I needed help processing everything that had happened. The betrayal had hit hard, and I realized I'd spent so long trying to be strong for her that I'd forgotten how to be strong for myself. Slowly, I began rebuilding my confidence piece by piece. I also enlisted a lawyer to help finalize everything. The divorce process was messy, her trying to spin it as me overreacting, her trying to guilt me into coming back, but I stood firm. I had enough evidence to show her true colors, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of it. It was a long, exhausting process, but I knew it was necessary. I refused to be sucked back into her bullshit. I wanted to move on, to start fresh, free from her lies and bitchy attitude. Looking back, I realized this whole experience has changed me drastically. I've become more cautious about trusting people, more aware of the masks people wear, and more determined to never let anyone treat me like a fool again. The betrayal cut deep, but it also opened my eyes to what I deserve. No more bullshit, no more lies, just honesty, respect, and real connection. I won't pretend that I've completely moved on. Sometimes I still think about what could have been, about the years I wasted trusting someone who was so selfish and manipulative. But I've learned that life goes on, stronger, wiser, and more cautious. I've learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to see what truly matters. And what matters most is that I'm still here, still standing, and still capable of finding happiness again. To anyone reading this who's in a similar situation, trust your gut. Don't ignore the signs, don't rationalize the lies, and don't let anyone make you feel small or crazy for wanting honesty. The truth might hurt, but it's better than living in a lie. You deserve someone who respects you, who values you, and who won't cheat or lie behind your back. Because at the end of it all, the only person you can truly count on is yourself. And I've learned that the hard way. So yeah, I'm still healing. I'm still figuring things out. But I'm also stronger than I've ever been. And I know I'll get through this. Because no matter how much she betrayed me, I refuse to let her define my happiness or my future. I'm done with the bitchy lies. Now I'm just focused on moving forward, better, wiser, and more prepared to spot the next fake smile,